from Columbia in high definition. This is WIS News 10 Awareness.
Thank you for joining us for Awareness. I'm your host, Megan Norman. Colon cancer is the #1 cancer killer for people who do not smoke. It's the second leading cancer killer, period. African Americans are not only at a greater risk of developing colon cancer, but also dying from it. I know very scary statistics from the CDC, but there is good news. Colon cancer can be prevented if you put your health in your hands.
She was the cornerstone of our family. She shaped me as an actor, as a musician, as a human being. So when my mother was diagnosed with colon cancer, it was like our whole family got cancer. And she died when she was only 56, so this is personal. And hopefully my heartbreak is your wake-up call. Colorectal cancer is the second leading cancer killer, but you can prevent this disease. Screening finds precancerous polyps so they can be removed before they turn into cancer. I've been screened. If you think that you're at an increased risk like I am, ask your doctor when to start screening. And if you're 50 or older, please get screened. I'd do anything to have my mother here. Please do all you can to stay around for yourself and for your family. Screening saves lives.
Screening does, in fact, save lives, and one of the biggest advocates for proper screening is Dr. Stephen Lloyd, the medical director for the Carolina Colonoscopy Center here in Columbia. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Now, according to the CDC, in 2011, 50,000 people died from colon cancer. If it's so preventable, why are so many people dying?
That's an excellent question. It is so sad. Everybody that dies from colon cancer was probably a preventable tragedy. It's unnecessary. More than 90% of those lives could have been saved if people had just had a high-quality colonoscopy screening.
Right. And what is a high-quality colonoscopy screening?
It's one performed by a doctor that has an ADR above 20. Unfortunately, not all doctors have that, but that is the standard, the industry standard measure of quality in colonoscopy is called the ADR, which stands for the adenoma detection rate. And simply stated, that's the proportion of patients that we find at least one precancerous polyp.
Right.
So if I did 100 cases and I found a precancerous polyp in 40 of those cases, my ADR would be 40, which is what mine is.
Right, but they said 20 is really what it should be.
20 is the minimum. If you have it done by a doctor that has an ADR below 20, your risk of getting colon cancer is 10 times higher than if you had a screening by someone with an ADR above 20.
So patients need to be asking their doctor what that ADR is.
Absolutely. That is the most important thing. It's kind of like the new vital sign. If you want to have a quality colonoscopy, be sure you know what that ADR is. And if the doctor won't tell you what it is, you can always find someone else.
Right. Well, let's talk about the risk factors for developing colon cancer. What are they?
The #1 risk factor is age. As you get past the age of 45, the risk of getting colon cancer rises dramatically. And so age is the #1 risk factor. About 80% of the people that get colon cancer have no special risk factors, but there are some. Race increases your risk. Men get polyps a little bit younger than women, but women catch up past the age of 60, and so colon cancer is equal in men and women. African Americans have a slightly higher risk of polyps, but they turn cancerous more quickly, and so there's a 33% higher death rate among African Americans.
And why is that?
We don't know all the reasons. A lot of people try to blame the patient, say they didn't come in for screening, but that's really only a small part of it. The community has been very well educated about the importance of colonoscopy, and the difference in screening is a small amount, 10 or 15%. A lot of it may be biology or heredity or family history, is that there's something a little bit different biologically. They have a higher risk of breast cancer and prostate cancer. So I think cancer in general is a more serious disease for the African American population, and that's why it's such a sad thing to me to find people waiting until they have symptoms to get screened, because it's a death sentence. You can't wait until you're bleeding, and people ask, what are the symptoms of colon cancer? If you have any symptoms, it's too late. This is a test you do based on birthdays.
Well, let's talk about that. What is the age range?
Well, for African Americans, they should start at 45, and a lot of people are familiar with the statistics that say you're supposed to start at age 50, and that's what's been published. But those statistics are all based on giving a certain level of protection. And that level of protection is that 90% of people that get colon cancer are over the age of 50. But if you that population to the African Americans, to get the same protection, you have to move the clock back to age 45. So African Americans, the American College of Gastroenterology says should start screening routinely if you have no symptoms starting at age 45, every 10 years thereafter.
And it's good to know your family history, because if you have colon cancer in your family, then you probably want to get screened a little bit earlier.
You should start 10 years earlier than the youngest person in your family that ever got colon cancer, or age 40, whichever is younger. So most of the time it's starting at 40. If you have family history, and that's of either polyps or cancer.
Okay. Now, you have done quite a few colonoscopies. What does the procedure entail from start to finish?
Well, great question. The procedure, a lot of people are afraid, sounds like the procedure is very daunting and could be uncomfortable. We use anesthesia, so the procedure is really very simple. You're put to sleep. But it starts with making the decision. That's the most important thing, to act. When you decide you're going to have a colonoscopy, you decide where you want to have it done. The way you decide, of course, is by the ADR. Once you've decided where to have it done, then you have to take a preparation. You have to get the colon clean. For us to be able to see, to do the test properly, you have to get all the waste material out of there, and that requires taking some laxatives and purgatives to get things. Everybody's talking about colon cleanse. This is the ultimate colon cleanse.
It is.
And that's probably the only difficult part of it. And then you come to the facility, an IV is started, you're given medication, you're asleep for the entire procedure. You don't feel a thing. The anesthesia that we use is very powerful, works quickly, but it also wears off very quickly. So before you leave, we're able to have a conversation just like you and I are having now, where I can tell you what the results were, we give you copies of your pictures, and tell you when you need to come back. So the only hard part's the prep. Okay,
and moving to the procedure, we have a model right here of the colon. Can you show us what happens and what you do?
Yeah, what a lot of people don't realize is the colon is the last 5 feet of that digestive tract. Most of the work of your intestines goes on in the small intestine, and that's where you absorb all the nutrients, the carbohydrates, the fats, the proteins. The colon really is pretty passive, and what it does is when the waste material that's gone through the 20 feet of the small intestine comes into the area near the appendix, it's a liquid. If we didn't have our colon, it wouldn't change anything about our ability to digest or absorb nutrients. It's just that we'd be like birds, we'd drip, drip, drip. So the purpose of the colon, God invented our colons to be able to help us be more socially acceptable, and it sucks the water out of the waste material, and so then we have formed stool. And so it's a 5-foot long tract. In the models, it makes it look very easy for us to examine it, but actually inside the body, it's kind of all twisted around. And that's why sometimes doctors aren't able to see all the area, aren't always able to get to the end. It's very important to get all the way to the end of the colon where the appendix is and take pictures of it.
Because this is where the polyps form.
Polyps form equally throughout the colon. So 20 years ago, we used to do a test called a sigmoidoscopy, which was a similar kind of instrument, but only went this far. It only went about 18 inches instead of 5 feet. And so we later found out that patients that had polyps further in, they were actually even more dangerous. And the fact that you could have a normal sigmoidoscopy and still have colon cancer was sad. And so we found out that recommending a person have a sigmoidoscopy for screening for colon cancer was analogous to telling a woman, you need to get screened for breast cancer. We're going to do a mammogram, but we're just going to do one breast. It only examines half the tissue, so it was only getting you half the protection.
Well, let me ask you this. So when you go in there and you see a polyp, what do you do?
That's the key. The whole reason that colonoscopy is so powerful that can reduce the death rate by 90% is because colon cancer is not like breast cancer or prostate cancer. It doesn't start as a cancer. It starts first as a little benign growth called a polyp. And that trip, it's called the polyp to cancer sequence, usually takes more than 10 years. While we're doing the colonoscopy, if we see any of the little polyps, we'll destroy them, we'll remove them, send a sample to the lab, and that determines when you need to come back in. But as long as we find every precancerous polyp and destroy them, no one should ever get colon cancer.
Now, sometimes you do find polyps that are cancerous.
Yes.
And what is required at that point?
It depends. There's 4 different stages for colon cancer. Stage 1 means it's still confined to the polyp or above the surface of the colon. We can remove those during the colonoscopy. As a matter of fact, the recent church that we did with Reverend Gainey, they had 117 patients come. We had 2 that had early cancers that were both removed during the colonoscopy and never had to have surgery or radiation or any kind of...
But if it's more severe, then they're going to have to go through
If it's been in there longer and starts growing into the walls, the further in, the more extensive the evaluation and treatment. That you may have to have surgery, chemotherapy, radiation.
And finally, you said that it takes approximately 10 years for polyps to turn cancerous. So how often should patients be getting screened?
Every 10 years. Suppose you had a normal colonoscopy and the next day a polyp started. 10 years from then, it still should be something we can remove with a scope.
Well, great information for all of our viewers out there. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It's so exciting. Get the test. It's the most life-saving. It's 50 times more likely to save your life than a mammogram, to put it in perspective.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, it certainly takes more than doctors to spread the message of screening.
You can pray all you want to, but you still have to do something about it. Healing takes place not only through the hands and touch of the Lord, but also through the medical doctor and medical science who has placed in place as part of the healing process.
Saving your colon with the help of the clergy, getting churches involved in life-saving measures. Stay with us, that's coming up next. Welcome back to Awareness. Teaching about colon cancer and the preventative measures extends far beyond the doctor's office. A local nonprofit started last year called Save Your Colon starts in the church. Joining me now is retired Major General Abraham Turner, chairman of Save Your Colon, and Pastor Hayes Gainey of Edisto Fork United Methodist Church in Orangeburg. Thank you both for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
So how did Save Your Colon start? Why did you want to get this message out there?
Well, I learned of the devastating impact that colorectal cancer has had on the African American community, and that led me to just doing a little more personal investigation, and then I found out that there was this organization called Save Your Colon that was doing the work. And since I was interested in getting into a faith-based organization to help spread the word about the dangers of colorectal cancer, I volunteered to head that up, and here I am now as the chairman of the board of directors.
Right. Now, how many churches are you working with?
Well, right now we have 5 churches presently that are at some different stage of preparation to enter into the program, but we've completed well over 10 churches already.
And Pastor Gainey, one of your churches is a part of this.
Exactly.
Why did you feel the need to get involved with this?
Well, I got excited. One of the things is that it's personal with me as well.
Right.
My father died from colon cancer. And when General Turner came to me and called me on the phone, wanted to meet, and we met at the church, and I got excited. And he came to the church and made the appeal, and we did the survey form, and it was just on from there.
Right.
We started spreading the word and making things happen.
Now, was it receptive within the church? Yes, it's personal for you, but some people have fear of this procedure. So
Yes.
what was
Yes.
their reception like?
It was challenging. We had some navigators who shared what it's all about. We continued to win into campaign about it and letting them know that this could save your life. But what was so great was that when the few that had gone before came back and shared testimonies on that particular Sunday, those who were hesitant, those who were afraid, began to say, I'm going to get it done.
Right.
And the more who came back with testimonies, the great results came in as they came after June and shared what we've done with 50 people, what were the results and so forth, and others got excited and say, sign me up too as well.
Now, General Turner made the appeal this summer, and so how many people have you had to go get screened?
117.
That's great. And a few of them actually had some precancerous polyps, right?
Yes, yes. I was told about 18 lives were saved. It was interesting that there was a pattern or history of colon cancer in the family. And one young man, he's 32, who said that he wanted to get it done, and his mother said, you need to wait until you're 45. And he said, no, it's on me heavily, I need to get it done. Surely he went, Dr. Lloyd did the procedure, found out he had 10 polyps. 10 polyps, and Dr. Lloyd said he never would have made it to 45. And so it's just great that many of procedure that was done by Dr. Lloyd in his office has just been a blessing to Edisto Fork congregation. As a matter of fact, now they're not seeking any doctors anywhere else to get their procedure done, because they're coming to Dr. Lloyd. And one of the things that he has done, that has happened and shared with me from members who went there, said that he prays with you. Not often do you have doctors who would pray
do that
with the patient.
Right. General Turner, how does that make you feel to see the success of your work, of your labor?
Well, listen, I'm overwhelmed, okay, Megan. I knew that we had an opportunity to help save some lives and make an impact in our communities, but with the resounding results we've gotten from Edisto Fork has just reinvigorated our efforts, and we're pushing forward very, very quickly to gain more churches, to add them to our programs so that we can continue to help save lives out there.
Right. And what do you say as part of your appeal to people? Because even though you get up in front of the church and the pastor is going along with this effort, they still might not be receptive to it.
Well, you know, Megan, what I do is I basically just tell them the facts of the impact of colorectal cancer on the African American communities. I talk about the need to educate particularly African American males, because African American males are dying at almost double the rate of any other ethnic group. And I make an appeal to the wives and the daughters and the nieces to talk to their husbands and their uncles and their grandfathers and tell them, let's get busy. We want you around for a little bit longer. We want you to get out there and get your colorectal
Yeah,
cancer
because it's not just about the
screened.
patient.
You better believe that. It's about livelihood. It's about a continued focus on them helping their loved ones to survive beyond what they would have if they had colorectal cancer.
Right. And Pastor Gainey, what do you preach from the pulpit when it comes to health?
Well, I preach that God could use us a whole lot more if we're healthy for Him, which means that there's a part that we have to take in that being healthy. We can pray about it, but we have to go and see about it. That the healing process takes place, as I said earlier, in more than just God laying on hands, but through the work of doctors like Dr. Lord, who has done a great job, and many other things. And you know, a healthy mind and a healthy body can cause you to do great works for the Lord in the church and the community.
Absolutely. And we know now with this screening that so many more lives can be saved.
Of course.
Yes, yes, of course, of course.
And are you going to continue this effort in your church?
Yes, we will. We will continue the effort and the community. And I challenge all other pastors to get the word out, to preach it, to teach it, and let them know that you have a responsibility to help bring about healing and wholeness to your people.
All right, you put the challenge out there for other
It's out
pastors.
there for other pastors.
And we welcome his effort too, because with that, he helps us to spread the word about our efforts.
Right, and so you still want to spread this, not just here locally, but statewide ultimately.
Oh, yes, indeed. As a matter of fact, what I would like to do eventually is to spread our efforts throughout the entire state, to go down to the southern part of our state in Charleston and Beaufort, out to the west, out near Greenville and Spartanburg, and even up to Florence. We are looking forward to expanding this so that we can have even a greater impact throughout our state.
Great. Well, thank you both so much for being with us this morning. Great information.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, being a patient, you need to be an advocate for your own health, and that starts with being aware. Not sure what questions to ask? Well, know the truth and hear directly from a patient. Next on Awareness. Welcome back. Some patients fear the prep of a colonoscopy and others the invasiveness of the procedure, but as we now know, it can be life-saving. Dwight Bradley is not letting any fears get in his way. Thanks for being with us this morning, Dwight.
Thank you for having me.
Now, did you have any fears going into your first colonoscopy?
Well, yes, because I didn't know what the procedure was going to be like or what was the risk. But after talking to my doctor, he telling me that black men are more prone to colon cancer, and I hadn't had a screening in so many years that it was more beneficial for me to have it than not to have it. So after I have it, and they did find a polyp, so I was lucky that they were able to remove the polyp, and I'm here today.
Right. And so that was about 10 years ago, was your first one?
Right.
And tell everyone what the prep was like. And you just recently did the prep too.
Yes. Well, it's kind of grueling because you got to stick with a bland diet. You can't eat vegetables and a lot of fruits. And then there's a procedure where you take 4 tablets, laxative, and then you drink this beverage for the first day, and the second day you drink another beverage, and then that's preparation for the colonoscopy.
To clean it all out and get it ready for and to get it ready for the doctors. So when you went through the procedure, what was it like and the recovery?
Well, as much as I remember, in the recovery room, the doctor came in and told me what was the prognosis and said that they did find the polyp and it wasn't cancerous and that I should be fine in a couple of days. And so I went home and had a good rest and ate because I was hungry.
I'm sure you were. Any pain that you felt at all after? Soreness or anything?
Anything that was noticeable.
Yeah, nothing
it was
you really
just a little
remember.
tenderness,
Right.
But after a day or two, that went away, and that was fine.
So it was certainly worth all the prep.
To me, it was because anytime you can save a life or do something to better your health, then it's well worth it.
It's worth it. And what were some of the questions you asked your doctor going into this for the first time?
Well, I wanted to know, was there any symptoms? And like I said, I had a lot of bloating and gas and going on. And so he asked me when was the first, did I ever have one? And I said no. So he said being a black man and over 50, the screening would prove worthwhile, whether either I did have polyps or I didn't have it, or that I didn't have any problem with my colon. So
Yeah.
I took his advice because I trusted him, and he was a physician that I had dealt with for many years. So I took his advice, and I'm glad I did.
And finally, what would you say to anyone out there who is contemplating, who's worried about this?
Your life means a whole lot to you. You only have one life, and anything that can do to prolong your life, you should try.
Right. Well, Dwight, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with a final thought. Polyps or growths tend to turn cancerous faster for African Americans, and that's true for colon cancer, prostate cancer, and breast cancer. While we focused on the colon this morning, it's important to remember your overall health is your first wealth. Tests and doctor's visits may seem scary or unnecessary because you feel fine, but your life depends on catching any illnesses early. And if you're fortunate to not have any problems, at least you'll have peace of mind. Quality colonoscopies can not only detect cancer, but actually prevent it. So stay aware of your options and put your health in your hands. We'd like to thank all of our guests this morning. Until next time, I'm Megan Norman. This is Awareness.